What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So, y'all heard of a little thing called Vampire Survivors? I know it hasn't been, it's kind of under the radar, hasn't been getting a lot of attention this year, but looks like it could be the hot new thing. Yeah, well, so I never did a video on that game because, well, it blew up and was everywhere, and I mean, all I gotta say about it is it's digital crack, it really is. But what if you took that formula and turned it into a shmup? That's what this is, and that's what really fascinated me about it. So this is Gunlocked. Came out of early access a little while ago. This went into early access right around the time Vampire Survivors was hitting. To say that this isn't inspired by Vampire Survivors would be a total lie. But that game has established almost a genre unto itself, and there's been a lot of clones. A lot of them have not been good. This one, though, is very much doing its own thing, and that's what I wanted to show you. And it shows that you can do cool and different things with the formula that Vampire Survivors kind of kicked off. So, you actually have a lot going on in this. So you have, much like Vampire Survivors, you're gonna hear me compare it to that a lot because the comparisons are apt, but trust me, you're gonna see some different things here. So you have a number of different pilots that you can pick, which all have different starting weapons and abilities. As you progress through the game as well, literally just by playing it, you'll unlock these things called augments, which allow you to basically alter some of the mechanics to your liking. But you can, they're basically little mutators. You have different ships, which are basically just different colors and patterns, which you unlock by beating different things. You have trials, which these are more mutators, actually. The augments do change the levels a little bit more, but these trials are basically ways to make the game harder on yourself if you want to do that. So you can see there's a lot of different things here that you can do. So a lot of different ways to play it. You also have a codex here for all the different things that you're going to encounter. You see that I haven't done all of it yet. So there are 4 sort of main worlds in this, if you will, or maps that you can go through. I've beaten the first one. I've come right up to the edge of beating the second one, but I haven't yet. So, but there is a little tutorial in this that explains things. You can do the different trials that you've activated if you want, and there's an easy and a standard difficulty. So that's the way it goes. So the name Gunlocked, well, aside from the fact that it's actually a power-up in the game, also comes from the fact that you don't actually fire, much like Vampire Survivors. Take a drink. You don't actually fire in this. Your abilities and weapons fire automatically when they're charged up. You only move around. That is the only thing you have to do here. And as you move around, you will take out different enemies. They will drop these little coins that you pick up, and you will use those coins to buy new weapons, new what's called utility abilities, new augments, and to level up your existing ones. It does all sound very familiar. I'm not going to lie, it does. But obviously, as you can see here, we're playing from this sort of top-down vertical shmup type perspective. And this game has very much an NES feel to it. Very much NES look, NES music, sound effects, things like that. So here we go. We hit our first power-up. I will say that picking your power-ups and stuff is a bit of a slower process in this than in Vampire Survivors, because these things have very large descriptions, because they actually have there's a lot to these in terms of what they do and the status effects that they have. You'll eventually start to get to know the symbols as you go along, but you will have to pause a fair bit. And then after you pick one, the game does give you a 3-second countdown before it resumes, which is nice. I think some people would prefer the ability to turn that off because they'll find it a little pace breaking. But it's nice to do that. Lets you get your bearings going again. The different pilots that you can pick will all start with different weapons. This guy, as you can see, has that kind of shockwave thing there. I'm just going to sort of pick things at random here as we go. But any pilot can equip any power-up that you happen to come across. You also do have the ability to re-roll a certain number of times the power-ups that become available to you when you pick them up. So if you don't like anything that you're seeing and you want a chance at getting something more to your liking, you have that as well. So you have the sort of standard variants of enemies and weapons that are coming at you. You also have these asteroids. The asteroids can only be hit by directed energy weapons. So anything that locks on, any missile abilities and things like that, will not target those. But the advantage to taking those out is that they often drop sizable amounts of extra coin, which can be really nice. The blue ones are ice-based, so they're a little easier to take out than the red ones, which are stone. But once you get more powered up, it's going to become a lot easier to take those out frequently and get yourself a lot of extra coins, which you will need. Because basically, as you progress through this, you'll see in the upper right there's sort of 3... So this is where it varies a little bit too. Vampire Survivors do have... that game does have a finite end to its runs. It's quite lengthy. This is definitely a little smaller than that. So in each area, you see there's a progress bar in the upper right. Like I said, there's 3 different sort of zones that you'll progress through of increasing difficulty. Each one lasts for 5 minutes. Once you hit the end of that timer, the boss will come out. Now, there's a different boss for each of the 4 zones that you can do, or the sort of 4 main zones, but each of the 3 sort of sub-areas within each level, you will be dealing with the same boss multiple times. So in each one, you'll be dealing with 3 variants of the same boss, but the boss's attacks get more intense, much like the enemies do. So though you're fighting the same thing using the same tactics, they are definitely a little bit harder. Occasionally things like that will appear. Upgrade data, which if you can stay in that area long enough for it to charge, is literally just a free power-up, but it's only 1 power-up that you cannot choose. Whereas here, as you can see, I have 2 rerolls that I can take per run that I'm allowed to do, and you can level that up more as you go as well. So that's kind of how that works. Each of the different zones has different enemies with different types of attacks. In the later levels, you're going to encounter higher level enemies that are much harder to take out, and some of them will shoot other enemies at you or their own projectiles. You'll start to see as this gets going here, things can get really chaotic really quick in this, for sure. But I'll be honest, I've been having a good time with this. I still play Vampire Survivors to this day because that game can take like 7,000 hours if you want to completely see every little hidden bit that it offers. But I keep playing it because it's so much damn fun, and it is a really cool new genre that developers put together. You know, some people like it. A lot of people like it. Some people don't. I'm one of the people who finds it really addictive, and I just really enjoy it. And despite how chaotic it can get, it's a very zen game. You know, you're just moving around. You're watching a huge ton of enemies get killed and watching numbers go up and buying upgrades. You know, it's very simple at its core, but gets very easy to learn, hard to master kind of thing. And that's what I like about it. Those pink circles, if you go into there, will disable your ship for a period of time. So that will actually make it so that you can't fire when you're disabled. And then those sort of little satellite power-ups that you can take like that will drop multiple things. Sometimes they'll recharge all your weapons instantly. Sometimes they'll give you a bunch of extra experience. Sometimes they'll make you invulnerable for a period of time. Sometimes they'll do some repairs to your ship. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this, a lot to balance and a lot to consider in terms about how you want to approach the run. You know, you may have a configuration that you find the best, but once you finish an area, you may want to try out, you know, some of the trials. You may want to turn on some of those sort of mutators that I talked about. You might want to try to go for a specific build to see how you can do it. You know, this is one of those games that's almost endlessly replayable. You can finish it, you know, you could get to the end, beat all the levels, and be like, all right, you know, I'm done, I'm satisfied, and you can have had a very good time and very good value for your money with it. Much like Vampire Survivors, this game is also very inexpensive. But if you want to put in the time and try out all the different things and do, like, you know, what some hardcore, like, Soulsborne fans do, which is trying out a crazy number of different builds and trying to make your own sort of challenge for yourself, can absolutely do that. And it offers that, and it offers it with a pretty cool aesthetic and at a pretty darn good price too. I will say that the music in this, as good as it is, and as much as it nails the NES sort of square wave type of composition, it is a little repetitive. They're much like the NES was back at the time. The loops are not necessarily very long, so you know, it may get a little annoying after a while, but these are also great games to just play while you have, you know, Netflix or YouTube up on another monitor or something like that. That's generally how I tend to play them. So after a certain amount of time, I just turn the music off, and I turn the sound effects down so that I can still hear them, but that they're not overpowering, and that's what I do. These are great, despite the tension of them, these are great games to relax to. They really are. Obviously, you have a high score as well that you can achieve there, as you saw. No online leaderboards or replays in this, unfortunately. Look, it's a cheap game. I'm not going to fault it for that. It's just one of those things when I see it not in a shmup, when I see lacking online leaderboards, it's what I always want to see. And I know it's not the easiest thing to implement, so I'm not going to say you shouldn't buy it for that reason. But some people, you know, for some people that's important, right? But really, you're seeing the bulk of what this has to offer. You know, if you like Vampire Survivors and you like shmups, honestly, this is kind of a no-brainer. That's why I picked it up. I picked it up when it was in early access. I didn't actually get a press code for this. I never asked. And if you like the Vampire Survivor style of games and you just either want to play, you know, maybe you've tapped that out and you want to play it in another type of setting, or you like shmups as well and are just like, hey, I like, you know, this is chocolate and peanut butter, then there you go. You've got this too. This is quite well made. And I don't think, you know, some of you may be old enough to remember that back in the day, after Doom happened, every new first-person shooter that came out for years was called the Doom clone. And for a little while, we actually had a lot of open-world games that came out getting called Grand Theft Auto clones. And that was a really reductive, unfair way to treat it, but it was also just a simplified way because no one really knew, because a new genre had been invented and no one really knew what to call it yet. So until, you know, something got established for that and sort of became the lexicon, we didn't really know. And I really think Vampire Survivors kind of spawned a new genre on its own. You know, I call them survival auto shooters myself, which is clunky, and I'm not going to pretend it's a good name, but I think it's descriptive, and this is one of those, but a shmup. These guys, a lot of people have just tried to straight up copy Vampire Survivors. These guys went, hey, those are some cool mechanics, what's another genre we can apply that to? And they put in their own style, their own upgrade system, they added a whole bunch of extra challenge components to it, and it is very clearly not a traditional shmup, but you can very much see that DNA in here as well. And it really is a chocolate and peanut butter situation. It's taking a new genre and that was invented by a particular game, taking a lot of the things that make that game appealing, and then also merging that with the elements of shmups that people like in a way that I think does justice to both of those things. And that this game came out both in early access and in full release at basically the same cadence as Vampire Survivors is pretty darn impressive as well. You know, they turned this sucker around really quick considering that when they started on it. So I'm pretty impressed with that too. To be honest, I'm really excited about this new sort of auto-shooting survival genre. I really enjoy it, you know, and there's going to be a lot of crap that comes out as people try to jump on the bandwagon and capitalize on the viral success of Vampire Survivors. But there's already been a couple of cool and different games of that type that have come out. This was one of the first, and they did a darn fine job, if you ask me. So I've been really enjoying this. I'm going to keep playing it. Obviously, it looks like an NES game, so it'll run on anything. You ain't need no fancy GPU to run this sucker, I'll tell you what. And this is going to go in my repertoire right alongside Vampire Survivors as something that I'm going to play a lot when I have some time to kill, you know. A lot of people say that who bought Steam Decks this year said that they just ended up becoming their Vampire Survivors machines. Well, Steam Deck will easily run this sucker too, so if you want another thing like that to throw on the pile, here you go. It's in the same price point. and it offers just as much value, replayability, and straight up fun, in my opinion. So yeah, that is Gunlocked. It is out now in full release. The devs have been supporting it. They've been putting out updates and things like that. So this was not a you know, a dump it on Steam cash grab kind of thing. Far from it, in fact. This was clearly done with a lot of love and care and understanding of what makes both shmups and these survival auto shooters really, really fun. And I highly recommend checking it out for fans of both. And if you are into both genres like I am, you're going to find this a treat, I think. So thanks very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, what do you think about this? Are there any other auto survival shooters out there that you are interested in that you think I should check out? You know, if you're a shmup fan, what do you think about this unique take on it? And yeah, I'd love to chat with you guys about that. And as always, you can also follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other indie games as well as retro stuff over there, including some things that are better suited to streaming than YouTube. We have a fantastic community there, and I would love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, all, and I'll see you on the next Indie Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.